views and opinions in the following program remain those of the producer, and in no way reflect the views and opinions of Medford Community Cablevision, its board of directors, management, or other affiliates.
Welcome to the latest edition of Protect Our American Way of Life. My name is Jim Tuberosa. I'm your host, and we've got a very special guest coming up, which I'll introduce in a minute. We'll call him a mystery guest. But let me tell you some of the things we want to talk about today. Now, first of all, I want to start off with a quote by George Washington upon his leaving the presidency. He said, "Beware of any small, enterprising, artful minority controlling our United States." Well, we see that he was right to warn us about it because it's happening now. And when I say minority, I'm not talking about ethnic minorities. I'm talking about a smaller number. Now, with regard to Obamacare, President Obama says, we have too many people. I think he gives a number of about 13 million people that are going to become destitute and lose everything because they don't have health insurance. Well, that's not quite telling the story. The fact of the matter is that 79% of the country does not want health care. Obamacare, does not want Obamacare. So at best you have 21% that does want it. Well, that makes that a small, artful, enterprising minority. Now, among other things, and my guest is on the sideline waving on and on, but another thing I want to bring out, this election is probably the most important election, not probably, it is the most important election in the history of our country. It's not a popularity contest between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, and that's what they're making this because the Democrats, and I will not call them Democratic because they're not. The Democrats will not fall back on their record and their aims, which are totally un-American as far as I'm concerned. Now, what they want is put an end to free enterprise, freedom of choice, individual rights. Now when my guest comes on, we'll talk about Obamacare, and their choices of insurance carriers take away from them, from the people, and are dictated by Obama's government. Nobody ever goes without health care in this country, by the way, and that's illegal aliens included. Let's remember that. Obamacare is totally unnecessary, okay? Jobs will be lost, by the way. President Obama and the Democrat Party claim that Obamacare has already produced 600,000 jobs. Well, it hasn't, especially not in the private sector. It has produced some jobs, but they're not in the private sector. I've interviewed 7 different nurses that have been around for a while, and this is from 3 different hospitals. These were not friends or anything. They were random. Every one of them is deathly afraid of their jobs, and every one of them says that they're understaffed. Now, jobs will be lost, and that's it, plain and simple, because smaller companies will not be able to afford to provide insurance for employees. They are the middle class that Obama claims he wants to protect. Under $200,000 and above is what he considers the wealthy. Well, I promise you, small companies that employ maybe 25, 50, 100 people are not millionaires. Now, Obama claims that all Romney ever talks about is saving the economy. Well, gee whiz, that's kind of the job of the president, is it not? And the economy is obviously going down the drain, and it's worse. It's not even the same. It's worse than it was when Obama took over the presidency. And he claims that we have I think he's produced about 1 million jobs or something, not in the private sector, if at all. And it bothers me that he's allowed to get away with this. The mainstream left-wing media, aka Democrats, they side with the Democrats, you won't see anything bad in the papers about President Obama. Could you imagine in Boston, the two major newspapers, the Globe and the Herald, you practically never see any stories about President Obama because he doesn't do anything but talk, and makes a lot of empty promises. Now, even Obama admits he will have to raise taxes. This will cost jobs and hurt the economy and the small companies. By the way, 50% of the country does not pay taxes. At least they don't pay them directly. Now, when the smaller companies lose money, they have to go out of business, thus costing us jobs. When the huge conglomerates, the huge companies, when they get hit with taxes, all they do is raise the prices because they'll always have their profit. And by raising the prices, that is automatically a tax on the people, call them the poor people, that go to the supermarkets and buy automobiles and so on and so forth. Now, it's, my God, I wish I could show this picture, but, well, at any rate. It's a picture out of the Herald, and it's two captions. The first one shows President Obama bowing and kissing the hand of the Arab community, and the premise is that when he chastised Israel, he was bending over for the Arab or Muslim community. The second one, and they call it the second term, where President Obama said to Russian President Putin, wait till after the election when I'll be more flexible. So now, in his second term, it depicts him bending over and being able to kiss the ground and saying, I'm more flexible now. Well, at any rate, that should be remembered. In November, that should definitely be remembered. He's going to do something with Putin if he's reelected that he knows that if he did it before the election, the American people would not be happy about it, would not vote him back in for a second term. Now, there's something else. He claims to make rich pay their fair share, and he defines rich as over 200,000. Well, most of that is a small business who will be forced out. California alone has lost over 1,400 businesses. So multiply that by roughly about 50 to 75 employees, and there's more people that are out of work. Big business simply passes cost on to the consumers, aka the poor people. So this is a tax. And by the way, getting back to this is a tax, Mitt Romney said after the Supreme Court decision, he said, if the Supreme Court, this is a quote, if the Supreme Court says it's a tax, then I guess it's then a tax. Now, the people, including President Obama and the people representing him, went on to say, well, Mitt Romney has flip-flopped again. He said before it was not a tax, now he says it's a tax. Remind everybody, he did not say it's a tax. He said the Supreme Court says it's a tax, so therefore it is. Now, there's something else that I want to bring out. This is probably the most secretive, presidency in the history of the country. And there are so many things that happen that we never hear about. Like I said earlier, the newspapers will not print out anything, won't say anything at all that Obama has done or the Democrat Party has done that people won't be happy about. Now, an awful lot of people don't know that he's allowing China to drill for oil 50, 60 miles off the coast of Florida. Brazil, he will he gives Brazil $2 billion a year to drill for oil in our waters and then buys the oil from them. Well, why aren't we drilling for oil in our waters? Okay, forget about the EPA says it's bad. Well, gee whiz, Brazil is not in good a condition as we are for drilling oil and preventing spills. And what do we do if they do cause a spill? Then we wind up eating it up. That's costing us a few $100,000 jobs, and as is the Alaska pipeline. I think that's costing us something like 280,000 jobs. Not to mention that it will lower the cost of oil for us. Now, hundreds of thousands of jobs are lost because the USA is not allowed to drill in our own waters. That was a headline in a paper, I forget which which state it was, but it was sent to me a few weeks ago. Something else that drives me crazy. President Obama is constantly saying the Republicans must work with me. He leaves out or else. Now, if he wants this to be a two-party country, then how about working with the Republicans? Now, something happened that few people realize. A few weeks ago, the Republicans brought forward a bill, and they had a vote on it. And the bill simply said that any doctor knowingly performing an abortion on the basis of the sex of the baby, the gender of the baby, or its race, he had a 5-year penalty for any doctor knowingly doing this. Well, when it went to a vote, every Democrat voted against it. The bill did not pass, and President Obama, when asked about it, he said, absolutely, he says, we did the right thing by not allowing this bill to go forward. So therefore, he thinks it's okay to have abortions on the basis of sex, boy or a girl. I mean, this is what China is doing, and I won't go anywhere deeper in that, but I hope you know about it. And he praised the Democrats for defeating the bill, But by the way, I'm not going to let this go. When my guest comes on, maybe we'll talk about it. But why did he ever bail out GM? Okay, General Motors could have gone into bankruptcy and restructured themselves and still remained a strong American company. He bailed them out because he now took control of them, and not too long ago, he virtually gave them, or a division of them, to Shanghai Motors in China. Shanghai Motors makes exclusively cars that run on battery-operated, not gas vehicles. They didn't have all the technology they needed, but General Motors does. And gee whiz, why isn't General Motors still in this country making these cars for us? The START Treaty. Wow, this is something else. Maybe you can show this up. This is the START Treaty, okay? And who will be looking out for us? The START Treaty, it weakens our national security. Remember when he told President Putin, wait until after the election, he can be more flexible? Well, that's what he's talking about. It's also good of party must not take precedence over good of country, and that's what he's doing. Okay, well, look, the election should not be, and this is important, and I'll end it with this. Election should not be the popularity contest that I said before. It should be about our national security and safety of American citizens, and also about our economy. And Obamacare is deeply, deeply tied to our economy, as well as to the freedom of our people, individual rights, and individual freedoms. And I've already told you about the START Treaty, so now we can get ready and really get down to business. My guest tonight probably has the best show on cable TV. And without further ado, I'll introduce him. My friend Ziggy. Ziggy.
Hey, how are you? Hiya, Jim. What's happening?
Thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Well, it's my
I
pleasure.
would love to be doing a show with you permanently.
My pleasure to be here, help you explain some of the craziness that we are living right now in our society nationally and in the state of Massachusetts. But I noticed you did mention many things. One was the health care. I just heard it off to one side. You mentioned Obamacare. Obamacare is not free. I don't know if you know that.
I know it.
A lot of people think, well, gee, how can you be against Obamacare? It's something that's helping everybody. It's not. It's not free. You're going to pay. This is a misguided idea they put across that this is free. It's not free. It's going to take up 18% of the gross economy of the country involved with this program. It is going to control, you mentioned nurses. I heard you talk about nurses. It's going to control nurses. It's going to control doctors. It's going to control what kind of care you can have. If anybody has looked into the Canadian system, the English system, in Canada, they have a waiting list for different tests that you may need. And if you have the time, you'll have to wait. And so many Canadians who have the money come over the border to the United States, whether it's in Buffalo or Boston or Detroit or Chicago, and have tests done because many of these things require immediate attention. It can't be on a list for 6 months or 8 months.
Absolutely. You know, two things I want to interject here. First of all, when you were saying it's not free, you're absolutely right. And not too long ago, I believe it was Nancy Pelosi was saying that the Republicans are saying it's going to cost $247 a month more. It's not. It's only going to cost $122 a month more for the insurance.
The problem with Congressman Pelosi is
we only got to know now, Ziggy. We can't tell all her problems.
Okay, fine. But she tells it from a completely false idea, and then changes again, then changes it again, and then when you finally get to her with the facts on many a situation, she said, "Well, that's all we knew. Anyway, it's going to be good."
Yeah. So another thing, Congressman Tom Price from Georgia. He's a doctor. He's a medical doctor. He has said this is not going to help the medical profession at all. There's nobody in the medical profession that wants it, you know, and it's not going to create jobs, you know, and yet, you know, people don't seem to pay any attention to them.
People have taken this idea of this Obamacare as this will cover everything and it's all for free, and they go on and on, the greatest nation in the world and free health care. No, it's not. It's not. This is mumbo jumbo. It's unfortunate that the press picks up with it, runs with it, keeps on advocating that this is good for people when it really isn't. It's really a problem, a serious problem. It's not a problem. You know, people say, "Well, you know, you must be a Republican," and you say to them,
"I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent."
I'm an independent. I'm also an independent. I think most people get to a point in their life, at least thinking people, and they look at the political parties and they say, I question that about this party. I question that about that party.
Yep.
So you become an independent. You say, I want to vote for the person and the idea. I don't want to be locked in, like in this state, we're locked into the one-party system. You know that.
You got that.
It's the Russian form of government, the one-party system.
The only one-party system in the world are communist and socialist.
Well, usually that's the way it runs. But I'm saying in our state we have this one-party system where one party runs everything. We have our citizens thinking. If you bump into a group of folks, and of course I'm like the last piece of food, they just come after you to give it to you when they see you. And you tell them, you think you're really living in Shangri-La here in Massachusetts?
Wow.
Well, they say, it's a great state. And they go on and on and on. And I say, well, you know, you do mention a lot of good things. You're correct. But you know what? We have a state where we are the second from the bottom of the number of states, if you were a business, to create jobs and help people in this state. There's only one state lower than Massachusetts, and that's the state of Hawaii, and that's because they're out in the middle of the Pacific, and they have so many.
They have one industry, tourism.
Tourism, but I mean, it's a Looney Tunes state out there. I mean, they really are. Some of the bills and some of the legislative things they have out there that they put through, they mirror what goes on here in Massachusetts.
Something else that you were probably about to say, it, so I apologize. We're one of the few states in the country that's losing people.
Yes,
Our
we are.
population is going down. Why are people leaving? What do they call it? Taxachusetts?
Well, they call it Taxachusetts, and the real problem, if you are a manufacturer and you have serious manufacturing operations, and somebody in a southern state offers you
Oh, absolutely.
all kinds of benefits from a plant to no taxes, you're not sticking around. In Massachusetts, they all run around and say, well, why are you leaving? We can't understand. Boy, you're a traitor to this state. And if you're
they know it. Everybody knows why
they
they're
say,
leaving.
look, we can't continue operating here with all of the things the state legislature has put in place to do business here.
The stupidest thing I ever heard of is we have in this country, we have a 35% tax on corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that all the corporations are moving out of the country? 35%. Now, we used to be second. Now we're number one in the entire world. Japan just lowered theirs down to 28%. We should be going down, corporation tax should be going at least to 25%.
Jim, there's a misguided idea, and it's present among many people.
What's that?
That corporations can afford to pay. So, look, why defend them? They have the extra money. They should do this for the citizens, for the people who work that make the money.
But you and I are the ones that pay for it at the drugstore, at the supermarket, at the gas pump.
Of course. There's a misguided idea here that corporations will just suck them dry, and they'll just come back for more and say, look, you're taking us for this X amount of money, we're going to stick around. They don't. You know, a classic company that everybody knows in Boston is Fidelity Management, which is Fidelity Mutual Funds and all the things in the financial business. A few years back, and recently in the last 2 years, they've moved major parts of their operation to adjoining states. They moved one operation into Cumberland, Rhode Island, which is right over the border.
Yep.
They moved another operation into Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is basically over the border by a few miles, and Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Why don't these people realize that whatever the corporate tax is, raise it up to 100%, for God's sakes? They're not going to lose money because they just raised the price of their product. You know, there was a movie out about 15 years ago, a Danny DeVito movie called Other People's Money. Did you ever see it?
No, I never saw it. I heard it.
Well, he was a real slick,
operator.
A takeover artist and all. And a young lady lawyer from a company he was going to take over, she said, "You're just in here doing these things for your own profit." He says, "That's what business is." She says, "Someday they'll make laws against you." He said, "That's okay." He says, "I stay within the law, and if they make new laws, I adapt." Which means I just raise the prices.
That's
so
right.
That it's such a simple thing, and so many people don't understand it.
Well, when you have corporations that they go and they tax, they put another tax or a fee. And they a fee, right?
Yeah.
And they call it, well, this is the least a business can do for the state they are in. Okay. I mean, this is all looks great. It sounds great. It sounds very acceptable. But what happens in reality? The company says, we're not eating it. By eating it, I mean they're going to not pass it on in their product. They, right away, figure it into the cost of the product.
By the way, excuse me a second. If this is a publicly owned company, if they did eat it, they would go to jail. They would be sued by their stockholders. Now, Bain, okay, I'll bring that up, Mitt Romney's company. Obama constantly says when he was president of Bain, he was sending jobs overseas. Well, Mr. President, that was his job at Bain. He knows how to bring the jobs back to this country, and if he becomes president, then that will be his job, to bring jobs back to the country.
Well, you know,
simple as that.
The unfortunate part about a lot of things they're trying with Mitt Romney, who will be probably nominated as the Republican nominee for president, is that they have taken his great ability to take a bad situation and make it into a good situation. And they've taken it and made fun of it. And one of the commercials shows a town, I think in Indiana, where Bain Capital, a Bain company, came in to try to salvage this company. And after 2 years, the Bain decided to liquidate the company. Well, for 2 years, they tried to rescue the company. Now, I know this doesn't help you if you're an employee of this company in Indiana, because you lost your job when they liquidated the company. We know that. But they came in and made an attempt to save something that was going to go down if they didn't come in. So they win it. How many times? It's like, can you win every baseball game? Can you win every football game?
It's probably the only time that they weren't, that Mitt Romney was not able to resurrect something. Remember his father did with American Motors?
Yeah, his father was the
going down the drain.
Of American Motors.
Sure. Well, he became president,
Nash,
and he saved them.
Rambler,
and then
Nash.
when he left, somebody else came in.
I shouldn't remember those cats.
I think Hudson might have even been in there, too.
But,
I don't know.
And, well, the one remaining, I think, car that they had was the Jeep. Jeep was part of American Motors from Wisconsin. And that was bought, I think, later on. Chrysler bought it. And it became in the Chrysler line. But the whole thing we have, you mentioned earlier in the opening statements, remarks, about what this election is about. It really and truly is about whether you want the USA as the USA is supposed to be constitutionally, and the idea that we are the United States, or do you want to change our country?
There you go. Now, that's why the name of the show is Protect Our American Way of Life. It only takes common sense.
Right.
We know what America stands for. Freedom is the biggest one. Free enterprise gives you the right to choose whatever you want to do to try and make a living. Well, little by little, we're taking these things away from us.
Now, if I can interrupt you, it has nothing to do with President Obama. So
exactly.
I'm not, don't get me wrong.
He's about fourth down the line.
But all of these food bans that we're talking about, and 2 or 3 of them happen to be in the city of New York, and there's 2 or 3 that are in the state of Massachusetts, under the guise that it's government's responsibility to go in and ban food. Food now. The food itself is not the problem. The problem is eating too much or eating right. This is called personal responsibility. Your personal responsibility not to eat in excess, but to have the government step in. It's like one more thing we're throwing on that government feels that they have an obligation to do. And when you think about what your rights are as an individual, the item in question is not an illegal substance called food.
I got you. George Orwell started it off with his book 1984. He said by 1984, Big Brother will take over the United States. Well, Big Brother, I believe he calls television or the media or whatever, but all your rights are gone. You have to, when you walk into your apartment, you have to stand in front of the television and be responsible for this, that, and the other thing. And nobody should be able to take any right. If I want to eat steak and they say steak is bad for me, I want to eat steak. But education is the key to everything.
Right.
Absolutely. Education on nutrition,
on
everything else.
That you're talking about, and that I brought up the subject, many of the same people, if they're advocates for banning the 16-ounce soda or banning salt or banning
I got you.
or all these, they say, well, hey, I want to smoke.
It's not good for you.
I want to smoke a little grass.
Yeah.
The government.
Oh, they want to legalize that.
They turn around and they say, well, if that's the, how come you're for freedom of eating different foods, but when you mention anything about, say, marijuana or other class substance drugs, you're against. See, but I always come back to those particular items are banned. Those are illegal. Those are illegal as far as we know. Now, we know in the state of California They have, in fact, we're going to have coming
Medical
up,
marijuana.
Right, we're going to have that on the ballot this year here in Massachusetts, medical marijuana. But I'm saying to you, the items that they're wanting to ban or have banned or will ban are items that they are not illegal to possess, such as food or soda or salt or hydrogenated oils. You can argue, yes, if you eat them to excess, it may cause a problem.
Way off base. The argument is the government does not have the right to control our lives or protect us from us under the guise of protecting us.
So this started
from
this
us.
started
And that's
with
all
the,
it is.
this
It's
started
about
with
government.
the tobacco.
It's
this
about
started
government.
with cigarette smoking, and
well, it started long before that. You remember Prohibition?
Prohibition is another story. You know, they talk about this is the least we can do to protect our citizens, and we as a government have to step in. Well, they tried it with Prohibition, and that was alcohol.
That should have been the end of them trying to control the United States.
It doesn't matter. They come back in. And the tobacco situation, where tobacco and the settlement and how much money was received, and now you have governments and cities and towns and states selling cigarettes, but they won't allow people to smoke the cigarette.
They just want to gain more control. That's all.
Well, this is it.
That's all.
Gain control.
That's all the
over your
Democrat
life.
Party wants to do.
You know, but
gain
this is,
control.
But getting back to our president, unfortunately, he's had 3.5 years to try to do something.
Wait, time out. Let me point something out. He's done an incredible job in the last 3.5 years for his own private agenda of wrecking the American way of life and making us be just like the rest of Europe.
Well, that you could say from that standpoint, he's done a good job working
on his private agenda, which is totally un-American.
Right.
Only 100% un-American.
He would tell you that he feels that this is the right way for America to go. We, as people of the United States, citizens of the United States, do not agree with him and feel that he is not following the Constitution. He is going in a direction that is not what the founders of this country wanted, and we have
to not going in the direction. He's there.
Well,
he wants to go deeper.
We're trying, by having President Obama retire in January of next year, we feel that he would do better in retirement than to continue.
Now, I'm going to tell you something, and this is, call it a warning, call it whatever you want, but anybody listening knows this is what will happen. Should he lose the election, please God, he's not going to retire. He's going to go back to being the militant activist for the Socialist Party.
He probably will.
Absolutely. Well, that's where he got his start.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Community organizer.
Akon is who he got his start with. And Akon has already been found guilty of rigging an election. But, gee, strange as it may seem, they've never paid the penalty because it came up about the time President Obama became president. They've also been under indictment for rigging another election, which has never gone forward. That's the Attorney General's job to bring it forward. Of course, the Attorney General is put there by President Obama.
Here is another point, an important point. It's not just national people, it's state people. We elect people to positions to follow the law that's on the books, that is the law. We elect people to be attorney generals or district attorneys to follow the law. We elect a governor to follow the law. We elect a president to follow the law.
Gotcha, come on.
But they don't.
Yeah.
So we have to start pushing our politicians from every level, even from as low as the mayor or city council, to follow the law that's on the books.
Yes.
It's not to be interpreted by somebody, well, I looked at the law and in my opinion, that's not what it's about.
I agree.
And this is something we have to work at before these folks continue this terrible situation.
Is the country in better shape than it was 3.5 years ago?
No, it is not.
Why don't the people out there see it? Obama says, I've gotten the jobless rate down to 8.3%. Got it down to, you said it was going to be down to 5%. You know, he's done nothing. He hasn't gotten it down to.
If I can interrupt you, he said when he was asked about the high unemployment, if it remains this high, then I don't deserve another term. You are 100% correct. I mean, we're out there hoping for hope with this president. And I think we gave him a chance. I think he'd be better off back in Chicago. There'll be thousands of different organizations that will request for him to come and give a speech, to be on boards of different companies.
Yep.
And we say, well, it was a good try. We wish him all the best, and we go from there.
I think people should understand he's not the boss.
No,
all he does is step forward. George Soros.
I don't know if it's
for
him,
one,
but there is a group.
He's one of them.
There is a group that is giving him the policy ideas, and
people don't know about the UN.
Oh, the UN.
The UN is gaining more and more. Well, they're not a joke because they're gaining more and more power, sponsored by the EPA and Agenda 21.
Well, that's another.
You know about Agenda 21. Well, it's part of it because Obama and Hillary Clinton are pushing for things in the UN that they couldn't get passed in this country. Gun control, for one. They're pushing for universal gun control from the UN. And then when the UN makes it universal, then they will time out. Then when they do pass it, if the UN passes that, then President Obama will step forward and say, I'm just following the UN. You know, it wasn't me, whatever. Well, get the hell out of my country, pal. You know, and again, this comes under Agenda 21, which was written in the 80s by a woman who was vice president of the World Socialist Party. And go ahead, you want to say something?
Our Constitution gives you a right to bear arms.
Yes, but we all know that the president. Here's the biggest thing of all that should get him knocked out of office. He has said the Constitution is antiquated. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has said the Constitution has outlived its usefulness. Well, good, then get the hell out of the job, because your job is supposed to be to uphold the Constitution.
Well, her job, and the other justices on the Supreme Court, is to interpret what comes before them based on our Constitution and what we think.
Yes, and President Obama, the same thing. His job is to uphold the Constitution.
This is correct, but they all want to try. Ruth Bader Ginsburg there said she looks to laws in Europe to make decisions on things that come up. We as a country do not subscribe to those ideas in these European countries.
We are now.
Well, we shouldn't.
And 3.5 years.
We have our own laws. Our country is the greatest country in the world. It's the greatest country in the history of the world. We made this country, by we I mean all of the people that worked hard all these years, did all kinds of sacrifice and hard work, and we are able to show how great this country is. Having this particular group, which happens to be President Obama and many of these other folks that are in back of him, is just taking this country right down into becoming a third, I know it sounds dramatic, but a third world country.
Un-American.
I mean, just a quick one here. The people from all aspects, you mentioned EPA, I mentioned the Sierra Club, all these people, well-intentioned people.
Maybe. I don't think so.
A country that has electricity 24/7 without problems in every part of the country is a great country. If you think a country, you make the comparison to some country in Africa who has electricity 3 hours a day, and they make the comparison how great they are, it's not.
You're absolutely right. Let me point something out. As soon as Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton entered the White House, they started on their big program of globalization and multiculturalism, and giving millions and millions of dollars to people that come to this country so that they can promote their heritage. Well, I have a friend whose daughter had a big stink. She went to Wellesley, And this, I'm going back about 5, 6, 7 years. Wellesley College, you cannot graduate without courses in multiculturalism. Her beef was that every single culture in the world was represented except the white American female. And she wanted courses in that, and they said no, and she fought and fought and fought, you know, and however it happened, she finally, you know, left. I think she sued them and finally left. But that and the globalization, people to come to this country, the way the country became great is because people from other countries came here and they all adapted to our American way of life.
They became
Americans.
Versus
now
what
you have. Can you imagine? I can't get a job because I can't speak Spanish, but there are Hispanics that can get jobs even though they don't speak English. We already have a couple of states that allow you to get a driver's license even if you can't speak English. You know, and there's a couple of states that have sworn in people, made them U.S. citizens in their own language instead of our language.
But they would tell you on that because there's nothing officially on the books of the country that states English is the official language. Which
and people don't know that. That's
right.
Not, I'm going to give you one.
This.
1996, the House voted overwhelmingly in a landmark decision to make English the official language of the United States. Why not? There's about 35 other countries that it's their official language. And the Senate let it die. So that was that. There were two organizations, both of them headed up by Hispanic gentlemen, and that have been around for a long time. One of them started about 39, 40 years ago. I think it's called U.S. English Today. And he stated, and when he came to this country, I think he came from someplace in South America, he could hardly speak English. Well, he went and he taught himself good English, went on and got a degree in architectural engineering, and did very well. But his company states that the standard of living for people, Hispanics, he said, that don't speak good English is 33, 34% less than Hispanics that do learn good English. Well, gee whiz, that's a no-brainer. You know?
Well, the thing that comes down to, we're a country that wants to change everything for everybody coming here.
No, we're not. We
have
a government.
Well, this is a
it's
group.
A Democrat Party.
I call them the clever people. No, the people that,
not good enough. You got to call them the Democrat Party.
Well,
because Republicans don't try to do it.
Okay. The clever people, and they don't necessarily follow in any party, although a lot of them do fall under the Democratic.
No Democratic. Not
Democrat.
Yeah.
But they want people, new arrivals, to feel welcome. Now, the reason you mentioned English, we need one language to converse in so that all people can converse knowing that that's one language. When you have a country that accepts multi-languages, now, say Switzerland has 3 languages.
Time out. Just go over the border into Canada and watch the problems up there.
Well, in Quebec and the French and the English in the other part of Canada, there are problems. In Canada, if you're a manufacturer of any food item, any kind of item, you have to put 2 languages on the product.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
that's not a problem.
We as a country should ask, as a part of them coming to this country, that they must know English. It's essential for their well-being. We should also state when people come here what they did in the past, which they haven't done. You would accept people into this country based on a need for their skills. Not
Absolutely,
anymore.
Right?
It doesn't work that way.
It's all politics.
It's not we're building towards a great country here. We're just building any group of people that wants to come here. I've often said, if people have seen my show, they want America to become the flop house of the world, and then everybody make excuses, and everybody here adjust and change, and to accommodate other people, when the people of the United States that started the country should know what's going on.
You know, a friend of mine out in California was telling me about a lecture he went to by a noted professor, and he said that somebody said to him, why does the Democrat Party want to back all the illegal aliens and bring in more and more illegal aliens? And he said because he wants their vote. He will kowtow to them. He will give them things that they couldn't get anyplace else. And whatever rights he takes away from them, whatever control he exerts on them, they don't mind it because whatever country they came from was 10 times worse.
That's correct.
So if you come and you take every right away from them, it's still better than where they came from.
You come from the terrible situation.
Yeah.
You come here, no matter how limited what rights you have here, it's 9 million times better than where they came from.
You want to hear something? Now, but my family, my mother was born in Greece. And on my father's side of the family, my grandparents came here in 1905. Okay. On neither side could they speak English. Now, on the Greek side of the family, my mother's uncle was a priest. He was a high-ranking priest, and he was here 5-6 years earlier. And he made them. He was the boss of the family. You know, when things got bad enough in 1915, my grandfather sent all the women in the family, you know, to this country. You know, he stayed there and fought, you know, with him and my uncles. But at any rate, my uncle, the priest, said, "You speak English only." Now, on my father's side, I found out that my grandfather did the same thing. He says, "English only, but on Sundays you can speak Italian." But
well, that's the other thing.
My mother, you get no trace of an accent from my mother or my aunts.
You know, these folks.
It's called immersion.
When you talk about English being the language, the bonding of all groups of people, no matter what countries they come from or came from, nobody ever said in your own home, among your own peers or friends, you could speak your native language. But our language here, the national language for making our country great, is English.
Yeah. But let me fast forward now with the Greek side of the family. One of my cousins from Greece came to this country. Now, he had a wife and 3 children back home. He came to this country. It took us 2 years to get him here because we had to put up a $10,000 bond that he would not go on welfare. This guy, he was a hard-working kid. And he got 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs, okay? And he would say, what a great country. He says, my bosses don't mind that I have a second job. But they were both, he eventually started his own business of, you know, painting houses inside, outside, cleaning up apartment buildings and cleaning. And he did everything imaginable, washing and waxing cars. And within 2 years, not only did he have his own business, but he bought the 3-family house that he lived in. And he brought his family here. And as far as English, when he wanted to become a citizen, they said, well, you have to be here another 3 years or something, and you're going to have to speak better English. And he already spoke pretty good English. You know, but...
well, he must, if he's still alive today...
No, he died. He overworked himself.
He could look around and see, you don't have to do any of that today. Just get your feet on this soil, and there's people that work in government, in state, local, and federal. They'll get you anything and everything you want, and then they'll make excuses why we have to give it to you. And this is not a ploy to hurt people. It's just we can't do this for every person that comes here.
You know, 83% of the Hispanic community does not want bilingual education. Now, about 18 years ago, I entered a program reading to kids in kindergarten. Actually, they wanted me to read to 12th graders. They didn't want a man around kindergarten, first grade kids. Anyhow, 2 of the classes I read to were 15 and 16 in the class. They were Hispanics. Half the kids didn't understand Spanish and the other half didn't understand English. But the teacher kept talking to them in Spanish. I'd read something, half the class would laugh, and then the teacher would explain. The teacher would explain the other half what it was. Well, after the first day, these two teachers went to the headmaster. The man was very nice. He says, but it's kind of disruptive to our class, and the kids that can't speak English are starting to feel sad and inferior. Now, the third class had about 48 kids in it, and it was everybody but Hispanics. And they had two teachers. These kids were great. They loved it. They loved the show. You know, they loved the readings and everything. I mean, little girls would come up to me and said they wanted to marry me. Remember, one little girl came to me and said, I know I'm too young for you, but you can marry my sister. She's 11.
There you go.
The little boys wanted me to come home and meet their mother and become their uncle. You know, it was just unbelievable.
They liked you.
Now, one of the nice things, and I just found this out last year, I just don't know who the little girl was. She wrote a children's book, and she dedicated to Mr. Big Jim, who taught us all how to read when I was in kindergarten.
Oh, great.
And the
great memories for this.
The secretary. Oh, but it made me feel great. But the secretary had told me about it. The secretary of the school back then. But you know, reading programs are great. But let the kids learn to speak English.
Right.
You know,
it's sort of like the word you get is that, at least I pick up from so many people, is that having people, new folks, newcomers, legal immigrants, to follow rules of our country is an imposition. And it isn't.
They keep making excuses for them when they break the law.
And they keep on, you know, you got to understand, and this and this and this. I always come back to this. Nobody puts a gun to anybody's head to come to the United States. If you want to come, you come. And we know already many come here and don't ever bother.
The streets are now paved with gold.
Right, yeah. And so, you know what? When we as a country, and it seems like this is a fact, we favor people who are not U.S. citizens, who overstayed a vacation or overstayed their welcome over our own citizens, we have some trouble.
I agree with you 1,000,000%. But, you know, let me change the subject a little bit. The safety of the country.
Yep.
Now, President Bush, the younger, I keep forgetting if he was W or not, but at any rate, there aren't a lot of things that he did that I really was in favor of. Didn't do a heck of a lot that I was dead opposed to, but I thought there was a couple of things I would have liked to have seen him do. English Today is one of them. But one thing that he did that the whole country should be on their hands and knees for him, he stopped the rest of the world from slapping us around. And he had the guts to, when we got attacked in 9/11, he had the guts to go right over and said, this is a war on terrorism. Any country that harbors terrorists, we're going after them. And that's what he did in Afghanistan. And then he went over to Iraq. And whatever, if he had to have a legal excuse, he said weapons of mass destruction. The opposition party, a.k.a. Democrats, said, well, he never found any weapons of mass destruction. The country is the size of California. Weapons that will kill 1 million people can be put into something the size of a shoebox.
Right.
But the big thing is Obama used them to exterminate his own people, and we know that, and he said he had them, and he harbored terrorists. That's it. Well, we got the signal that, we only got less than a minute to go.
We can't talk a lot more.
So, oh boy, could we ever. Ziggy, the next show you're going to be here. Thank you so very much.
Great.
Okay.
I'll have you on my show someday.
I would love to.
Great.
I would love to. But at any rate, that concludes another edition of Protect Our American Way of Life. I hope we shed some light on a couple of things out there that should be shed light on. But do, in fact, come November, protect our American way of life. And don't let that other party, please, don't let them continue to ruin If he did this in 3.5 years, imagine what he'll do as a lame duck in the next 4 years. And not just him, I'm talking about the party itself. My name is Jim Tuberosa. Thank you for watching Protect Our American Way of Life. It only takes common sense.